Hello and welcome. I am a Hotel AI expert, and I am pleased to welcome all students of Europe Hotel School to your online learning journey. Today, we're diving into one of the most critical skills you'll ever need as a leader in our industry, mastering F&B cost control. This is really the bedrock of any successful operation, and my purpose here is to help you build that rock-solid expertise. So let's get started.
So you might be asking, why are we jumping straight into this? Well, it all boils down to this one number, 2 to 5%. Now, what does that mean? That's the amount of profit that can just disappear. It silently slips away from your bottom line, lost to things like waste and theft that you might not even see happening. And let me tell you, that small percentage, it's often the entire difference between an F&B operation that's a huge success and one that's constantly struggling to just break even. Our mission today is to find that leak and seal it up for good.
All right, here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to uncover that hidden profit drain. Then, we'll talk about establishing your financial baseline, getting our numbers straight. After that, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of controlling operational waste and securing your inventory. And finally, we'll bring it all home and discuss why this is truly the mark of leadership. So let's jump right into our first section.
All right, Section 1, the hidden profit drain. Let's talk about understanding the variance. See, the first thing we have to get our heads around is where this profit is actually going. It's almost never some big dramatic event. It's more like a slow, steady drip. A leak that happens in the gap between what you think your costs should be and what they actually are when all is said and done. Okay, let's break this down. It really comes down to two key ideas. On one hand, you have your theoretical cost of goods sold, or COGS. Think of this as your perfect world scenario. It's what your costs should be if every single ingredient is used exactly as the recipe dictates with zero mistakes. Then you have reality. That's your actual COGS. This is what you really spent at the end of the day. And that gap, that space between perfect and reality, that's where your profit is leaking away. It's the waste, the overportioning, the theft. Our job, your job as a future leader, is to shrink that gap until it's virtually non-existent.
Section 2. Establishing your financial baseline and the incredible power of recipe costing. So the big question is, how do we even know what that perfect world cost should be, right? Well, it all starts with a foundational business principle: you absolutely cannot control what you don't measure. And in our world, the single most important measurement, the cornerstone of all financial control, is accurate recipe costing.
So what exactly is recipe costing? Think of it as your financial North Star. It's your single source of truth. It is the painstaking, meticulous process of calculating the precise cost of everything on your menu. And I mean everything, down to the pinch of saffron, the gram of salt, the drizzle of olive oil. This isn't guesswork, it's science. You have to account for things like butcher's yield and trim loss. Once you have that exact number for each dish, that becomes your benchmark. It's the standard you'll measure all your real-world results against. Okay, moving on to Section 3, controlling operational waste, from tracking to training. So now that we have our benchmark, our perfect world cost, we can start to hunt for that variance. And the very first place we're going to look is operational waste. Now let me be crystal clear about something. This is not about pointing fingers or blaming your team. This is about being a detective. It's about diagnosing the real problem, and the first step in any diagnosis is gathering data. That means we have to track everything. And when I say everything, I mean it. This is one of those areas where there is absolutely zero room for negotiation. A formal standard operating procedure, an SOP for waste, is essential. The rule is simple, and it must be absolute. Nothing goes into the bin without being recorded first. I don't care if it's a crate of spoiled tomatoes, a steak that was overcooked, or a salad a guest sent back. If it's waste, it gets documented on a waste sheet, period.
And this waste sheet can't just be a lazy scribble. It has to be detailed. Let's walk through it. Step 1, you log the item and exactly how much was wasted. Step 2, and this is maybe the most important part, you write down the reason it was wasted. Was it spoiled, dropped, cooked wrong, sent back? You need to know why. Step 3, you record the cost, the monetary value. We need to see the financial hit in black and white. And finally, Step 4, a manager has to sign off on it. This ensures accountability and that leadership is aware of what's happening. It might sound like a bit of paperwork, but trust me, this simple process is a powerhouse.
Okay, so now you've got all these waste sheets piling up. So what? Well, here's where it all comes together. This is where you transform from just a manager into a strategist. Because the point of these sheets isn't the paper itself, it's the data on the paper.
When you start to collect and analyze this information over weeks and months, you'll stop seeing individual mistakes and start seeing patterns. And those patterns, they are a roadmap that leads you straight to the root cause of your problems.
Let's look at a real-world example. Imagine you're looking at your waste reports and you see the same thing over and over. High spoilage. Lots of fresh produce getting thrown out before it's ever used. That's not just a run of bad luck, right? No, that is a giant flashing red light telling you there's a problem with your systems. It means you're either ordering way too much or your team isn't practicing proper first in, first out, or FIFO rotation. The data doesn't just tell you there's a problem, it tells you exactly what problem you need to fix.
Or how about this one? Your data shows a ton of waste during prep. You're seeing huge vegetable trim or perfectly good protein getting mangled during butchery. What does that tell you? It's not that the ingredients are bad. It tells you that your team needs more training. It's a clear signal that you need to invest in teaching better knife skills, proper portioning, and specific butchering techniques. The data points you right to a training solution.
One more for you. What if the waste sheets are full of notes about portioning errors? Maybe plates are coming back because they're too big, or you can just see from the line that there's no consistency. One plate gets a huge scoop of potatoes, the next gets a tiny one. That's not just a cost problem, it's a guest experience problem. And again, the data tells you what to do. The solution is to implement rigid, clear standards. That could mean using portion scales for every protein, standardized ladles for sauces, or even posting pictures of the perfect plate right on the line.
All right, next up, Section 4, securing your inventory by implementing theft prevention. We've tackled waste, so now we have to talk about the other major reason for that profit leak, shrinkage, or let's just call it what it is, theft. Look, I know this is a tough subject, it's uncomfortable, but as a leader, you absolutely have to address it head on, not with suspicion, but with smart, professional systems designed to protect the business's assets.
So how do you do it? Well, a secure inventory isn't about one single thing. It's about layers of control. First, you have physical controls. That's the easy stuff. Literally putting your high-value items like your top-shelf flicker and your expensive cuts of meat under a lock and key. Simple. But then you need procedural controls, and these are just as critical. Things like blind receiving, where your clerk counts the delivery before they see the invoice. Why? Because it forces an honest count every single time. It also means doing regular random inventory spot checks. And this one is huge, separation of duties. The person who places the orders can never be the same person who accepts the delivery. That single rule prevents a huge number of potential problems.
And this idea of accounting for everything has to be absolute. We're talking about items that aren't even sold. Every single complimentary glass of champagne for a VIP, every meal that's made for a staff member, every dish that had to be remade for a guest, it all has to be entered into the POS system. Even if you're just using a comp button and the price is zero, you have to do this. Why? Because if you don't, that steak or that bottle of wine just vanishes from inventory with no explanation. It gets buried in your cost of goods sold, and it looks just like waste or theft, making it impossible to see the real picture.
Okay, last section, the mark of leadership, moving from operator to strategist. We've gone through a lot of tactics, a lot of systems, the how-to stuff, but I want to zoom out for a second. Because mastering these controls, this isn't just about being a good day-to-day operator. This is about elevating yourself into a true financial strategist for your operation.
So, I want you to think about this as you continue your studies here and eventually move into your careers. What is it that really defines a financially savvy, truly sophisticated F&B leader? What's the difference between a manager who's just good and a leader who is genuinely exceptional?
Well, here's the answer. It's the ability to not just know about these systems, but to actually implement them, manage them relentlessly, and most importantly, to champion them within your team. It's about a fundamental shift in your mindset, where you stop seeing the numbers and the controls as a chore, and you start seeing them for what they are, powerful, strategic tools that you can use to drive profit and achieve real operational excellence. This, right here, is the skill that will set you apart.
And I want to leave you with this one final thought. Look, pretty much anyone can write up a business plan on paper that looks fantastic and promises incredible profitability. But a true leader is the one who builds the rigorous systems that make sure those profits promised on paper are actually realized in the bank. By mastering this kind of proactive control, you become the person who closes that gap we talked about, the gap between the theoretical and the actual. You ensure the success you plan for is the success you actually achieve. That is the mark of a true professional.